Welcome back to my channel. I am Dina Haynes, and this is my channel where I used to talk about manifestation and basically how to manifest your most desired life. And if you've been watching, then you know that I stopped recording for a period of time. I think it's been almost like maybe a little over a month since I recorded my last video. And basically, I came here today to tell you that I had a stroke. I suffered a stroke, several weeks ago, and that is why I'm here today, to explain to you why I had this stroke. So basically, I was diagnosed with diabetes, type 2 diabetes, years ago. And I basically thought I had beat it. So I thought, I'll just, with diet and exercise, I will beat this. And I kind of did, after 6 months of strict diet and exercise, I beat it, or at least I thought I did temporarily. And so fast forward, God, it was probably like, I don't know, like maybe 10 years ago. I wasn't getting checked. I wasn't going to the doctor. I thought I had beat it. And then one day I woke up and here in my home, and I wanted to take a shower. And so I did. So I got up, I got in the shower, and as I was in there, I just remember that I started feeling dizzy and feeling like I wanted to pass out. And I did. All of a sudden, all I know is that I had passed out, and I woke up at the bottom of the shower. And I knew I had to get up, but it was really difficult. And so I did manage to, hoist myself up from the bottom of the shower. And then I knew I had to get out of the shower. So I got up, and then I grabbed my towel, and I stepped out of the shower. And next thing I knew, I was down again. And I was basically on the floor with my head. I just remember my head was near my dog's puppy pad, and smelling like pee, just reeking of pee. And so I managed to get up from the floor, and I don't know, it was kind of, it's kind of blurry what happened, in my mind. But basically I finished drying off, and I put on lotion and all over my body. And then somehow I managed to go into my closet, back to my room, into my closet. I got dressed in my lounge clothes, and then I walked out into the kitchen because it was the morning, and I proceeded to make myself a coffee. And I did that. I made my coffee completely till it was completely, done, putting creamer and all that in it. And then I just remember being in the kitchen, and it was a lot of confusion. And I remember hearing my sister's voice. She was, she was kind of talking to me, and she, was telling me like a joke or something. And I kind of was just wandering around the kitchen like in circles. And I just remember I was sweating profusely, like just dripping sweat. And my sister, she at one point, she just kept calling my name, like trying to get my attention. She was like, Dina. And I remember just really leaning on the counter in the kitchen. And yeah, and she just kept talking to me. She was trying to get my attention. And she couldn't get it. And she was like, at some point, she was like, she started to call my name, in earnest, like, Dina, Dina. And she came into the kitchen, and then she walked me out of the kitchen into the living room to go sit in the chair. And once she got me there, I know at some point, like right before she got me out of the kitchen, she called 911. And then she sat me in the chair. I remember sitting in the chair. And then I remember the 911, the paramedics coming into the apartment. And they came over, and they were, looking at me, and they were trying to ask me questions. And in my face. And I just remember I couldn't answer them. For some reason, it was like I was drawing a blank. And so they kept asking me questions, and I had no answers for them. And so they picked me up, and they got me onto the, the, whatever you call it, the gurney, or not the gurney, but the bed. And then they carried me out of there. They rushed me out of there. And yeah, I remember going down in the elevator. I remember coming out of the apartment in front, and it was kind of spotty from here. My memory just was really kind of spotty. And so they loaded me up in the ambulance and carried me away and took me to the emergency at Stanford Medical here locally in Dublin. And they took me there, and yeah, and then they just proceeded. I just remember them constantly asking me questions like, what's your name? What day is it? Do you know why you're here? And things like that. And at the time, I had no answers for those questions. I just remember just drawing a blank, and at times trying to answer these questions, and then drawing a blank, and hoping that at some point I'm gonna know the answers to these questions. And so I didn't. And I remember just laying there in the emergency, in the emergency room, in the bed, and not knowing how to answer all their questions. And at some point from there, they hoist me onto the bed to go into the emergency vehicle. And I remember my mom and sister being there in the emergency room, and wondering what the heck is happening. And I was wondering too. I was like, what's happening? I was wondering what's happening. At some point they're going to tell me. And yeah, and so once they got me onto the bed to get into the emergency vehicle for the second time, then I was like, oh, I'm going somewhere else, you know? And I just remember thinking that they were going to take me to this emergency out in the boonies, like out in the boondocks. And I remember thinking like that hospital is like, you know, I don't know, it's not good. That's all I remember thinking, is it's not a good place to go. And then they ended up taking me all this way. I mean, you know, through all these different streets that were, you know, foreign to me. And then we finally come to our destination, and I was wondering, like, where are we? You know, like I just had no clue. And then I ended up at UCSF in San Francisco, and this was a good hospital, you know. And so once I was there, they, you know, they got me into the hospital room, and you know, they took all my clothes off. They, you know, made sure I was equipped, you know, down below with, you know, an apparatus that would catch pee or, you know, whatever. And I was like that for like 4 or 5 days. I was in there. And as I was there, you know, nurses and people kept coming in and out, and everyone was like so nice to me. And you know, and I was in a great mood, you know. And so they'd come in, people would come in, and how are you feeling, how are you doing? I'm feeling good, I'm feeling great. You know, and I'm sure this came as a surprise to the doctors that came to see me as well. But I remember when the first doctor came to see me, I remember he had like this whole, you know, this whole grouping of students, or that's what they seemed like. They were like interns or something. They were, you know, learning from him. And they were interns, but they were also, there were doctors and along with him there. And I just remember, you know, him asking me questions, me, you know, knowing some of the answers, and then not knowing some of the answers. And you know, they were around, and they learned from him. And then there was another doctor that came in on another day, and he basically, he was the one, I believe, that told me that I have MoyaMoya disease. MoyaMoya, which is basically like, it mainly afflicts people who have some Japanese in their background. And I know that I know that on my father's side, we did it. My sister and I took a DNA test, and showed that I had Asian on my father's side, not on my mother's side. And so, you know, I just, you know, I heard about this MoyaMoya. Well, my sister actually looked it up. She looked up MoyaMoya to see who typically gets afflicted by this. And it's basically people who have some Japanese in them. So when I, you know, when he told me that I had MoyaMoya, I was like, oh, okay, I got MoyaMoya. And so, and what MoyaMoya is it's a condition of the brain where you you basically have a stroke, and all of a sudden your your so half of your brain is not receiving the blood supply. It doesn't have the blood supply from your body, and so you'll have to get surgery. So I knew that at some point I was going to have to get surgery. I thought it was going to be at the end of that week on Friday. That's what they kept telling me, and so I was pretty intent and eager to get that surgery. But I still had no idea what kind of surgery this is, or what this surgery would entail, what it would be like. And I wouldn't until, a few days later, they checked me out. So, my mom and sister had been coming every day. And I was told I was going to have surgery on that Friday, but Friday never came. I was out of there by that time. So when Thursday came around, they had checked me into one of the hospital rooms on the upper floors, and I stayed there overnight. And then they were like, "Okay, we're gonna let you go home now." And I was like, "Oh, okay." Without telling me anything about the surgery, like what's going on with the surgery. They're like, "We're just gonna let you go home, and then we'll check in with you and we'll see where you're at. Call your mom and your sister and have them come here and pick you up. We're going to send you home." And so that's what they did. So they sent me home, and that was a a long and crazy ride home in the lift that my mom and sister had come in. And yeah, and so then I came home. I was here, and I was totally able to care for myself, even though some of my memory was still kind of spotty, and it's still spotty to this day, But this is where I ended up, and now I have an appointment in a couple of days with one of the neurosurgeon doctors who is familiar with this MoyaMoya disease. And so I have an appointment with one of this one particular doctor. And then my surgery is now scheduled for the 29th. So that's in a couple of weeks from now. And then we will see. I will definitely keep you posted on my progress. But just so you know, up until now, because it has been several weeks, like it's been almost a month, like just outside of a month, or maybe, no, yeah, because it was on the 9th that I went in, and then they checked me out on the 14th, and then it is now, what is today? Oh, it's the 16th. So it's been a little more than a month. So but yeah, so I've been here. They've been having nurses come to my home to help rehabilitate me, and I've got a speech therapist who is fabulous, because she really helps with the brain, and knowing things, and knowing how to speak, and to use language in a way where I can communicate, and then which is great. And then I have a physical therapist who comes every week, and she's great, because she shows me the exercises that I need to do, and the walking that I need to do every day. And then different nurses that come by to make sure that I'm taking my meds and eating right and doing what I need to do to make myself ready for surgery. So my surgery is coming on the 29th. Today is the 16th. So, you know, it'll be here and quicker than I know it. But I will keep you abreast of what's going on every day, or every day along the way. I'll try to do this every day. But thank you for being here, and I'll see you next time.